Could you start with just telling me your name?
Yes, I'm Betty Dailey-Nugent. I grew up on a farm in Michigan in Oceana County in Crystal Township, which was an Indian reservation. And I was there until I was 19. And I left there to go to Traverse City, Michigan to be a nurse. We were farmers, and what happened was back in the 40s, farms were given farm subsidies, farmers were, and my father took that money and brought us to Florida because it was cheaper to go to Florida than to buy clothes for 5 children. So we came to Florida for winters. We came to Tampa, and my father built us a little cement block house in Tampa near the Hillsborough River, and we went to Mendenhall School. And we actually went to a school that had more than a whole family in, which was a one-room schoolhouse in Michigan. And in Florida, we got to experience individual classrooms, which was really neat. We did some neat things. They had a children's parade in Tampa, and it was before the Gasparilla Parade. And what happened was we were dressed like Hansel and Gretel with our school's parade unit. And I had a blue skirt and a white blouse with a little vesty black thingy around the middle. And a scarf on my head, a blue scarf on my head. And my sister and I were in that parade. And I lived 25 years in Michigan and 25 in Wisconsin and almost 25 in Florida. I've got one more year and I'll have 25 in Florida. So I'm 74 years old. After going through a lot of things in life and my husband passing in 1983, I decided to come to Florida to do something good. And I decided to start an assisted living home. So I came to Englewood and found a place on Oxford Drive, and I did it until 1999 and a half. And then I closed it up because I wore myself out and tried to do some other things. I knew I'd always have to be a working girl because I was single. I bought a house on Perry Street. I looked all over Englewood for a house for a bed and breakfast, and I couldn't find quite the right house. And finally, one day, I drove down the street, and I saw this lonely house. And I thought, that house needs some love. Anyway, and there was a man out in the yard next door fixing some windows. And I said, do you know who owns that house? And he says, you talk to Liz. She's inside. So Liz stuck her head out the window and said, oh, yes, the Lampp sisters own that house, and they live on the corner. And then I contacted the ladies, and I purchased it for $34,000, which was wonderful. And the ladies that lived here, Lottie Lampp and her sister Doris, were raised here. The sisters, they became my good friends, and they told me a lot of stories about their mama and how her mama got here from California, and their grandmothers and their grandfathers, and all the family histories. And so I was very fortunate to hear all those things from real true pioneers, ladies. I remember in Tampa, I remember reading a book about Thomas Edison being a young boy on a train in Detroit and going to being a newspaper guy. I remember that, and I loved that very much. And I thought, oh, that's kind of cool. And then for years, I never did anything with history until I retired to Florida. And that's my new life. Yes. So back in 1998, when I had my assisted living home, a man came to my house, and he wanted to work for me as a caregiver. And I said, Buck Whitaker, I do not need a caregiver, but I need a yard man, and you can come and work for me. So he did, and we kind of got to like each other. So anyway, we were planning on getting married. Well, he belonged to the Lemon Bay Historical Society, and he was born in 1924. 1926, they were still living there, and that's when the big hurricane came and went over the island and about wiped everybody out. And his father had tied him and his brother to a tree so they wouldn't fly away with the wind. And anyway, afterwards his mother said, get me the hell off this island. So they moved into Englewood. So Buck had a lot of history, and I liked that history very much because I always had worked all my life and never got time to volunteer and do things I really liked to do. I found that history I loved. And then I volunteered at the Sarasota County History Center. I got to learn how you file things. And it was really lovely because you got to read telegraphs from presidents and all kinds of things. Like Eleanor Roosevelt said, you don't know about your history. You don't know about your future until you know about your past. And that's very true. If you know about your past, you know which direction to go. It's just good to know about your ancestors because they're good stories. I think storytelling is good. And Englewood has changed, in the beach in Englewood has changed. You could go from St. Petersburg down to Anna Marie Island and through down this way, and it was just little causeways, and you could get out of your car and go off the road and be right on the beach. And nowadays they have built up roads and barricades on the side, so you can't do that type of thing anymore. But the water is very important to Englewood because it's a fishing village, and a fishing village helped provide people in hard times with food because they would catch the fish, salt it, and take it north and trade it for potatoes and vegetables, and that's how they survived the Depression. And Lemon Bay was a very important bay for all the fishermen because the fish would jump in your boat. There'd be so many mullet. They would just jump in people's boats, which is kind of crazy. It's fun to learn about how the older people maneuvered in War Mineral Springs. My Lampp sisters, they used to go out there as young ladies, probably in the 20s. They would go out there and swim across Little Salt Spring, a big salt spring, big, they called it Big and Little Salt Spring. And they would see a couple out there that came with an ox and a cart, and that would stay out there until their skin would heal up, and then they would go back to Sarasota. So they met some interesting people out there. Well, I like the story about Mr. Chapman. G.H. Chapman was his name. And this is an interesting story too. So one day he looks out in the water. In 1917, I have a clipping from the newspaper about it. 1917, he looks out in the water and he sees a Cuban ship sinking. And so he comes running over. He rode across to Englewood, got Hamp Lampp, one of the Lampp boys, to come across with him. And they went across, and by that time the ship had sunk. It had horses on and I think maybe just horses. They were going to Tampa from Cuba. And anyway, the ship sunk, and the guys all survived that were on the ship. And so Mr. Chapman and Mr. Lampp brought them here to Englewood, and they took them to the train station in McCall, and they got on the train and went up to Tampa. And where after that, who knows? But I thought that was neat. So one day I'm out on the beach at the Hermitage, and I went out on that ridge by the shore, and I found me a knee bone too. A knuckle. Yes, I did. And I was so excited. I thought, isn't this neat? And it could have been from that the horses that fell off that ship, you know? So you can find all kinds of artifacts in the waters around Englewood. I think the best personal memory was when I got designated as a historic house in May 5th of 20, it would have been a year ago, so that'd be 2012, and we had 60 people the first day, and in the last year we had 120 people visit. I think it's a neat thing, yes, to participate in a little village. It's like kind of finding your own second home. You know, you travel all over and do things all your life, but finally all of a sudden you find the right place. So I like it here very much.
Do you think that the work you've done with preserving history has made a difference? How do you think? Well,
I hope that's my biggest thing in life, is to make a difference. Just make a difference in somebody's life or whatever. And that's my main goal, just to make a difference. Could be a little, could be a lot. Like, you know, you always think about when you're gone, will anybody remember you? You know? And they probably won't. Maybe somebody near you will remember you, but you're just a worker ant. I always call them people worker ants because we're all going in different directions. We're all doing our thing. And when all is over, we're like, okay, will they remember us? Well, they might and they might not, but that's okay as long as you live a good life and doing good things and making a difference. Yes. Yes.